Hey everyone, so we're going to, someone expressed that they want to see the recordings of class. As a little compromise, I'm just going to present the do now and then the examples and then the exit ticket as a demonstration. All right, so here we go. We have a do now. This is going to be IA review question. We're going to evaluate the expression that we have here. All right, and this is how we're going to go about it. Exponents first, and we just see 3 squared and negative 2 squared. All right, so let's go ahead and do that first, as well as 3 squared on the bottom. But 3 squared is 9 divided by 3. Now, because negative 2 in parentheses squared is happening, that means is that everything inside the parentheses is being multiplied by the amount of times it's being powered, which is 2. So negative 2 times negative 2, positive 4. So multiplied by positive 4. All over 3 squared minus 6, which is 9 minus 6. Now let's simplify. I know to always go from left to right. So 9 divided by 3, which is 3. And on the bottom denominator, 9 minus 6 is also 3. So now I have 3 times 4, which is 12. Sorry about this. Which is 12 over 3. 4 is my result, so validate the expression, check. Slope is 4. Now, what the type of number is this? Well, it's a natural number. And because it's a natural number, it can also be a whole number, which is a natural number plus 0. And if it's a whole number, it can also be an integer, which is a whole integer, which is just a whole number with negatives. And if it's an integer, it could be a rational number, which is just an integer with a fraction, which could be 4 over 1. Makes sense. And if it's irrational, that also means it's a real number. So putting it all together, those are our numbers. Now, as a positive negative 0 is positive 4, so it has a positive slope. Oh, a value. Sorry, we're not even there yet. We'll get there. Here are some just major miscues some students will may have been making over the course. All right, if we just give you all 30 seconds to just look at this, we just revisit this from today's class. We kind of discussed though that when we have a value being squared, the whole thing, not just the 2 is being squared, the negative as well. So it won't be negative 4, it would be positive. And so the key thing to take from there is that when squaring a value, you ought to include all parts inside the parentheses. Going into our second miscue, see, here we go, negative 2 squared, it's 4, we're good there. But as you can see, when we do 3 times 4 first, we get 12. That's incorrect, because as I shown in above, we go from left to right regardless of whether it's PEMDAS or not. We apply these order operations from left to right. So we should not have done this. Therefore, the stamp is going to be we apply order of operations from left to right, then up to down. Make sure you write this on a notebook. And just as even a cool thing, because 9/12 times 1/3 is 9/36, both of them are divisible by 9. It's a common factor, and so we get 1/4 as our simplified expression value. And independent practice we have there. So now let's go into our lesson. It's about slope. with fractions and word problems. So what is the slope of the line K in the xy plane that passes the points 310 and 5, 6? So usually what we've done, we would just subtract the y values. It's a change of y. So 6 minus 10, which is equal to -4, in which we would divide by the x values of each other. That change of x. There's differences, that common difference. So that's really just 5 minus -3. And because I'm subtracting by negative, we're pretty much just adding together. So when we subtract by negative, we're really just adding to each other, and which gets to our -4 over 5 plus 3 is 8, which comes down to -1/2. Now this all leads to a formula, an equation for slope, in which this is going to be very familiar, or very be consistent as we solve. And that formula is going to be slope, or the variable m, equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Let me get these minuses in black. All right, so what this means is that we are given points, and every point has a x value and a y value. Here we have 2 points. Our first point is -2 2/3 and -2. Sorry, -2/3 2. Our second point is 1/3, comma 6. So putting both of these features together, we can determine that -2/3 is our x1 and 2 is our y1. And 1/3 is our x2 and 6 is our y2. And we can identify them like this. x1 equals -2/3, y1 equals 2, x2 equals 1/3, y2 equals 6. So once we have, so the question we ask ourselves is, what are our x1, y1, x2, y2 values, right? And then the second question is, how do we apply the slope formula given 2 points? And that's by substitution. So let's go right ahead. X2 is 1/3. Sorry, y2 is 6. So it's 6 minus y1, which is 2. And then it's x2, which is 1/3, minus x1, which is -2/3. So now, next question we have to ask is, how do we calculate the numerator? And that's by solving for that difference. 6 is -2, which is 4. Here we have something interesting because, again, we have those subtracting and negative, which means we're just adding the two values together. So now we have 4 over 1/3 plus 2 over 3. That's 3 over 3. 4, 3 over 3 is just 1. And there we go. So from this other question, we just ask ourselves is how do we calculate the numerator? Then how do we calculate the denominator? And then how do we calculate the fraction? And if so, how do we solve, or simplify rather, the fraction? In which case we got as 4. Okay, now let's talk about 4. It is a positive slope, therefore it is increasing. Also, as a positive 4, it is a natural number. It is a whole number. It is an integer. It is rational. And most importantly, it's real. So what's the big point we're trying to get from this? Alright, the slope between any 2 points on a non-vertical line will always be the same because of the ratio of the difference of y and x. When the slope is positive, the line is increasing from left to right. When the slope is negative, the line is decreasing from left to right. And we'll get into graphs tomorrow to really know what that means. So now, example 2. Throughout these past months, you have been using Optimum. With various Wi-Fi issues and slow internet, you have decided to change your internet and phone service. You decided to change services between Verizon and Sprint. Verizon has a plan where 5 people on the plan would cost $160, while 8 people would cost $190. Sprint has a plan where 2 people on the plan would cost $120, while 4 people would cost $170. Determine how much each plan costs per person, then determine how much your family plan will cost for 3 people. So, very good here. Our first question asks is, what are we solving for? That's usually at the tail end. And here we have then how much person plans for each cost. So the price of each plan for one person. That's what per person is. It's one person. Then how much for the cost of family fee for 3 people. So the price of each plan for one person and 3 people. Determine the meaning of x variables and y. So the x variable, let's see. Well, let's see. We have Verizon and Sprint. Verizon has a plan with 5 people on the plan for cost $160, while 8 it costs $190. So one of them's gonna be people, and the other's gonna be cost. Well, people influence money in this case. The more people you are, the higher it goes, right? I have 5 people, it goes to 160. I have 8 people, it goes to 180. It's not the other way around. Therefore, my independent variable is going to be the number of people. Now, y variable. Well, if we know people is the x variable, that means the y value is the cost. Is the final cost, yeah. What is the rate of change for each wireless? So let's split this up into 2 now. We're going to go Team Verizon and Team Sprint. So let's create some annotations real quick. We already said it's Verizon plan of 5 people, cost of $160. So that information right here will decide that we have a given point where it's 5 people for $160, or 5,160. 5,160. Also, 8 people cost $190. So here's another point. 8 people for $190, or 8,190. Let's see how this works out for Sprint, because they have a plan too. Of 2 people in plan would cost $120. So 2 people, 120, or 2,120. While 4 people cost 170. So 4 people, 170, 4,170. So here are 2 points. And now let's solve for that rate. So we have 190 minus 160 over 8 minus 5. 190 minus 160 is 30. 8 minus 5 is 3. We then have 10. Now that's the value. Again, we're trying to solve for the rate of change. So that means of the wireless company. So there has to be some type of units. And we have over here, the money is what is 190, 160. That's the cost, right? And the 8 and 5, that's the amount of people. Therefore, I can know that then it is $10 per person. That is our rate of each wireless company. Now let's try this for the next one. It's 170 minus 120 over 4 minus 2. 170 minus 120 is 50. 4 minus 2 is 2. That's 25. Again, cost over people, money over everything, $25 per person. That is the rate. Then it asks us create an equation for both wireless companies. All right. So we've done this before. We just looked at it as y equals kx. But because we know now slope is the variable m, this is changed to y equals mx. Therefore, we're going to have Verizon, y Verizon equals 10x, and y of Sprint equals 25x. There's our 2 equations. All right. From here, what does the rate of change mean in this context? So again, the units is dollars per person. So it's the cost per each individual, or the average cost for each individual. Let me just see the notes. The rate of change means the average of each plan. The cost per person, or as the rate. Which wireless company is more expensive and by how much? So this is where really just we're subtracting the biggest number from the smallest number. 25 minus 10, that is 15. And therefore we can say, because it's more expensive, Sprint has a more expensive rate than Verizon by $15 per hour. Again, per hour, always include these units. Now we can determine how much your family plan will cost for 3 people. That's again at the very end. So if it's for 3 people, then X equals 3. That's what this means. Therefore, for Verizon, it costs $30 for 3 people. And for a Sprint, we know it's 25x, but because x equals 3 as we share it here, it's $75 for 3 people. And there we have it. Alright. So these are going to be our practice problems that we've done in class. And then to our exit ticket. A rental car agency charges a per day rental fee, which includes the daily mileage allowance plus a certain amount per mile driven over the allowance. The graph below compares the miles driven over the allowance and the total cost for a 3-day rental. So eligibility calculate the rate of change include the units. So I just want to start with the units. Our rate of change is again change of y over change of x. That means the y-axis, which shows that it's money, the total cost for days. So it's going to be money over miles driven over allowance. So money over miles. And so here we got to look at certain points on the graph. This may be difficult to see, so I'm going to zoom in. This looks like a intersecting point between a value on the y-axis and an x-axis, which I have it as 30 and 87, 88, 78. And on the lower end, it really doesn't matter which one. Here we go though, 10 and 68. All right. So here are 2 points. Let's do 10, 68 and 30, 78. Subtract them both. One half. So the rate of change is 1/2. Well, the slope is 1/2. What does that mean in a word problem? Well, again, it's money over mileage, so it's it's 50 cents per mile. All right, explain what the rate change means in this sense. Rate change is the cost per mile. It is the average rate of money over miles. The graph of linear equation y is shown in the plane below. The slope of different line z is 3 times the slope of the graph seen below. What is the slope of line z? So if I know that this slope is 1/2 and I want 3 times the slope, I just gotta multiply that by 3. Therefore, 3 times the slope is 3/2 or 1.5. And if I increase the units, it's $1.50 per 3 miles to be even more precise. And there's the exit ticket.